right, so Isaac is in Chicago right now at the NBA Combine. Before we get into basketball and that Cal quote, Isaac, what pizza have we had thus far these last couple days?
Pequods. That's the go-to. Okay. I had the sausage, little onion, fresh garlic. It's fire. It's delicious. Now, granted, I'm from this area, right? I grew up in a small town in central Illinois, so I kind of knew the area where I was going. I wasn't heading to the most popular spots. I knew where I was headed, and we ate well.
Okay, well, that's awesome. So that is, you mentioned Pequods. My buddy that lives there and has lived there the last couple of years, that is the place that he said we have to go to. Last time we did Chicago Pizza and Oven Grinder, which my parents just went to last weekend. They loved the bread. That's more about like just the touristy and taking pictures and stuff. But I've heard Pequods is the best, so we gotta get over there for that. I want to start with the guy that's not at the Combine anymore, if that's okay, Isaac, in Boogie Fland. His agent, Mike Miller, former Florida Gator. We'll maybe get into some of that coming up. But what did you and maybe some of your colleagues make of Boogie pulling out of the NBA Combine stuff and coming back to college basketball? Just don't know where yet.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting, right? You know, I think the expectation with a guy like that was that he was going to be a first-round pick. And I thought he played like one at times throughout his freshman year at Arkansas. But, you know, I think this week it really just reiterated, one, you know, he's skinny, like really skinny. And you see him next to some of those guys at the NBA Draft Combine, and he looks a little slighter than some others. He needs to put on more weight, and I think he understands that. And two, like, there are real aspects of his game that he can get better at, right? Like the finishing at the rim, finishing inside the paint. You know, I think he shot just 28% on twos last year at the SEC. Now, granted, that's only, 5 games and it's injured. We could easily toss that out. But, like, there's still some holes that you can poke in his profile. And when you're talking about a guy who isn't guaranteed to be a draft pick and the money that he could potentially garner in college, it kind of made sense to me. And now you start to put together the list of teams that could make sense for him. There isn't really that many, right? Like, I think Florida obviously has a huge connection there, and they have a huge need in that backcourt. But you kind of go down the list. It's like, all right, maybe like a Tennessee could make sense if you try to pair him next to Jacoby Gillespie. Maybe, you know, a situation like Auburn could make sense if Todd Pettiford keeps balling out and ends up staying in this draft. You know, could Kansas get in there? Maybe I think that would be certainly a team to watch because they have a big need for another splash there, and they really need NBA guards. So yeah, those teams could make sense, but it certainly feels like Florida's in the driver's seat.
Any idea if St. John's is like that's where he's from? Is that a possibility?
Maybe. You know, I look at their depth chart and I just don't see it. Like what they've done right now, like they paid up for Ian Jackson. They've gone in and gotten Josan Stanton. They paid up for Bryce Hopkins. Like, I guess it could make sense because he's probably the closest thing to a traditional quote unquote point guard. But I just don't know if I see it from the budget perspective and just the roster that they have. They've kind of promised a few guys an opportunity. And when you can add a player like Boogie Fland late in the process, like you kind of understand that from just like from a talent perspective, like, hey, we're trying to win the title. But like you could also burn some bridges there too if you're promised something to Ian Jackson and then you know what, we bring in Boogie, now your role is going to change. And let's be honest, the other thing too, portal guys aren't tied in until they get on campus and actually start classes. So if you added a Boogie Fland, like Ian Jackson could easily get out of his agreement and then he'd still be in the portal because like the portal window doesn't apply for him at all. So I wouldn't expect St. John's to be a major player right now, but obviously things could change. And, you know, Rick Pitino, he isn't scared to ruffle any feathers.
Yeah, we saw that with R.J. Lewis in the end of that round of 32 game. Isaac Trotter, again, our guest, he is live in Chicago at the NBA Combine. It actually already started, so he's kind enough to give us some of his time this morning. Isaac, should Cal have to pitch Boogie to come back to campus? Like, how should that dynamic work, in your opinion, if you're John Calipari?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's complicated, right? Like, you kind of look at what the roster looks like right now. It could make sense for him to probably come back, but, like, again, Darius Acuff, DJ Wagner, do you want to split the ball handling reps there? Like, we kind of know how Cal teams run, where it's usually one or two guards that are going to get the top of the scouting report there and kind of get most of the run. Like, I kind of like what Arkansas has. Like, I like Boogie. I think Boogie's a really, really good player. But, like, with what they have right now with Acuff and Wagner, like, I feel like that's just fine. Like, you're just going to have to kind of cut your losses in that regard because, like, I just feel like the positional overlap would be a little bit too much, and then you're getting people angry. You're having you have to deal with all this fallout if you have three different point guards that you're trying to figure out. And hey, I'm all for figuring it out, right? Great players can find a way to make it work, and playing Boogie off the ball a little bit could be interesting, but I just don't see it from a depth chart perspective.
One of your recent quotes on social media, Isaac, was about Adu Thero, and in talking about his stay or go decision, you said, the door is not completely shut, but we should know more by the end of the week. For me, the door is kind of closed, but my circle around, they want to hear more great things to finally shut the door. I'm guessing those are his words, right, when it comes to that decision?
Yeah, okay. No, that's definitely his words. Okay. I talked with him yesterday, and to be honest, full transparency, there's a bunch of guys in the room, and I'm I guess I have to go talk to him. I kind of assumed that he was fully in. We hadn't really heard that he could potentially want to come back to college. And so if I had to pick right now, I do think the NBA draft is the most likely thing. But to be honest, that quote from him was a little bit of an eyebrow raiser. I was surprised that his camp said they want to hear more. But you know what? You kind of put two and two together. It does make sense. He's not a guaranteed first-round pick. You're not talking about guaranteed money there. And we've had a lot of examples of college basketball stars. They go play in the G League. They'll come back and tell their buddies that, hey, that's not very fun to play in the G League. It's not that great. It's not that great of a time. So I kind of understand, his camp's perspective of, wanting a promise, whether that's wanting guaranteed money, whether that's a top 35, top 40 pick. That could happen. But, he's not guaranteed to get drafted right now. So I could understand a situation where if that really is the feedback here in the next 10 days, he could entertain heading back to Arkansas.
Isaac, I always go back to some of what John Calipari has said about his 2012 national championship team where 6 players were drafted. He keeps saying everyone eats when that happens. And I'm not going to say if a dude comes back that they're going to win the national championship and all of a sudden he's a surefire draft pick. But I do think, if you add him back into the fold and Carter ultimately decides that, hey, college basketball, sophomore season, I could be the best player on the team is better for me. You're going to have, a top 10, top 5 team potentially in college basketball, right?
Yeah, for sure. And let's be honest here. I think, look at Duke. Their entire starting lineups here at the NBA Draft Combine. Look at Florida. Their entire starting lineup went either to the G League Combine or the NBA Draft Combine. Cal's right. When you win, everything else is taken care of. Now, I have some questions about some of the bigs, right, with what Arkansas has, and maybe you can poke holes in some of the three-point shooting of that group if you bring Adu back and Carter comes back, right? So there's some certain flaws, but, you're talking about one of the most talented teams in college basketball that they could have, and they have multiple NBA draft guys. So, yeah, I'd also talked with Carter Knox, his quote basically straight up, he's kind of a soft-spoken kid, but he's quote, I ain't going to lie, I don't even know right now. It's really difficult. Every GM is telling me you can't make a bad decision, so it's hard, man. That was his quote on it. I think he's back, too. So, if you can get one of those guys back, which I think is Arkansas's expectation, you feel really good about your team. I had Arkansas number 15, top 15 in my preseason rankings, which honestly don't mean anything. But yeah, I think if you add Adu and Carter back, then you're okay, we have a chance here to be one of the deepest teams, a very, very good defensive team with terrific positional size and the ability to kind of play, various lineups, right? You go big, you go small, you could be really, really interesting and have skilled size all over the floor.
Carter is a soft-spoken kid, as you mentioned, too. And the chances I got to talk with him, especially in a one-on-one type of thing at the NCAA tournament, it was enjoyable to just – he's kind of as a freshman, you're taking it all in, and he was definitely doing that. Isaac, before we let you go, you mentioned Florida and the number of players. So the SEC – for the first time since 2012, has won a national championship. Todd Golden, it's kind of that Billy Donovan mode, late 30s, early 40s, where he's got a long treadway left. Where is Arkansas? Where is the SEC right now in pecking order with the likes of Florida, Alabama, Kentucky, the Razorbacks? Where is that right now in program-wise, in your opinion?
Yeah, no, this whole league is just loaded again. Now, I think I have to recalibrate just a little bit of how good this SEC was last year. I don't think this year is going to be quite as good as last year, just because of the roster changes. We lost those COVID seniors and we lost the last year's seniors. So you're kind of losing 2 senior classes. So I think the talent level overall is going to be a little bit watered down. But, I mean, you still look through what these rosters look like compared to the past. Like the investment in college basketball is real. Like teams really want to be good in basketball in the SEC, and you start to see that with these rosters. So yeah, I'm actually going to work on my SEC way too early power rankings this week after some of the decisions get made. And you kind of look at the top. It's like, I like what Arkansas has. I like what Auburn has if they can get Sahad Pettiford back. Florida, it's a big TBD. If you had Boogie Fland and Xavier Lee, and then maybe they get Alex Condon back or Chinyelu back, feel good about that. Like Kentucky, they're as deep as any team in college basketball. Do they have the star power? I guess we're kind of waiting on Otega Owe. So there's a lot of teams here that are really talented on paper, but we really have to see what some of these stay or go decisions are down the stretch. And there's coaches all over the place here at the Wintrust Center this week, and they're all hyperventilating in the bag in the back corners when no one's watching because they're pretty nervous right now.
Isaac, we'll leave it there, man. Good stuff. Isaac Trotter, 24/7 Sports, CBS Sports, covering all things college basketball. Enjoy the rest of the combine, man, and we'll see what ultimately happens with the rest of Arkansas's roster.
Of course, man. Thanks for having me.
BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. Baseball season is in full swing and we're into the NBA and NHL playoffs, and BetOnline has more ways to stay in on the action with the latest odds, news, and scores, even live in-game betting while the games are being played. With the largest selection of odds on everything from the MLB, NBA, NHL, and UFC, BetOnline remains the best online source for all your sports wagering information. In between games, head over to the BetOnline Casino with all the top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here.